Today, we are going to tear down one of society's biggest, most damaging myths, and we're going to do it using a really powerful playbook, Joan Chittister's The Gift of Years. Now look, this isn't just about getting older. It's a completely radical counter-narrative to everything we've been taught to fear about aging. So let's dive in and really unpack what it means to live all of our years, not just some of them.
I mean, seriously, just pause on that for a second. What if that whole story we've been sold, the one that says life just kind of shrinks as the years add up, is just fundamentally wrong? This one question is really at the heart of everything we're talking about today. It's meant to challenge that deep, nagging anxiety that, let's be honest, most of us feel but almost none of us ever stop to question. So first things first, we have to face the story we've all been told. You could call it a cultural lie, and it's one that holds us captive before we even get a chance to write our own ending.
I mean, we see it everywhere, right? The story is that aging is this high gray wall just waiting for us at the end of the road. It's a time of what the author calls enforced uselessness, where our value just supposedly plummets the second we stop producing in a typical career. It's a really bleak picture of the slow, steady, inevitable decline. And of course, that leads to this terrifying, unspoken question. Is that it? Is the final chapter of my life just a slow fade into meaninglessness? You know, believing this story is probably the single biggest mistake we can make because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, so if the old story is a lie, one that's designed to keep us small and scared, then we desperately need a new one. And that is exactly what this playbook offers, a new, empowering story to actually live by as we get older.
This quote, which shows up early in the book, just perfectly nails the essential mindset shift. See, this isn't about mourning the life you had. It's all about having the courage to step into the one that is waiting for you, a life that might be even richer than the one you planned. And here it is, the core, game-changing idea. Aging is not the end of growth. It is a brand new stage of growth. This isn't some epilogue to your life. It's what the author calls the summit time of life, a period with its own unique purpose, its own unique power. It's not a burden to be endured. It's a gift to be opened. So how do we actually live this new story? Well, it requires a few key mental upgrades. And the very first one is all about defeating the internal enemies, that old, faulty programming that keep us hostage to that negative story. First up, we have to completely dismantle regret. Regret is a trap. It masquerades as wisdom, but it's always just whispering, what if? It sucks all the energy out of today by making us obsessed with a past that we can't change. The upgrade here is all about reframing, seeing every choice not as a mistake to be mourned, but as the very lesson that forged you, the thing that made you ready for what's next. Next, we gotta talk about fear. The fear of becoming invisible, of being seen as weak or useless. It can be absolutely paralyzing. But this perspective calls for courage. The real task here isn't to fight aging, but to age so well that you actually become a psychological and spiritual blueprint for the generations that follow you. I mean, think about it. What would change if you started seeing yourself in that role right now? And finally, we have to confront ageism head-on. You know, the greatest danger isn't the stereotype itself, it's when we start to believe it, when we internalize that horrible idea that we're somehow out of place. True power lies in defiance. It becomes our job, our responsibility, to live so fully that we prove that age is not a wasteland, but a vibrant and essential part of the human journey. Okay, so once we've cleared out those internal enemies of regret and fear, we finally create the space for our second upgrade. And this one is a fundamental, radical shift in where we find our worth. For decades, right, our identity is completely fused to our job title. What do you do? Is the first question we ask. So retirement can trigger this massive identity crisis. But this is the exact moment to pivot from asking, what do I do, to who am I now becoming? Your value is no longer measured by your function, but by the depth and quality of your being. This way of thinking also completely redefines our idea of authority. It's no longer about a title or a position on some org chart. It becomes this quiet, potent influence that can only come from decades of lived experience. It's the authority of perspective, not of position. And that new authority leads directly to wisdom. Wisdom isn't just knowing a bunch of facts. It's defined here as the insight that's left over long after an experience is gone. And this is the primary service of our later years, to provide enlightenment, not just labor, to a world that is so often just racing to nowhere. So we've reset our minds and we've redefined our value. Now we get to the payoff. The final upgrade isn't about more work. It's about mastering the unique and incredible freedoms that only come at this stage of life. You know, the Roman philosopher Seneca knew this 2,000 years ago. This chapter of life isn't about what you've lost. It is overflowing with pleasure, but only if we understand how to unlock it. And what are these pleasures? Well, they are radical freedoms. The freedom from that exhausting, lifelong burden of having to prove yourself. The freedom from caring what other people think. The freedom from the mad dash to accumulate more stuff. Be honest, does this sound like a life you could get excited about? It's the freedom to finally, fully, unapologetically be yourself.
And this freedom, it's not passive or sleepy. It's an active, vibrant call to action. The book urges us to be dangerously alive. This is the time to chase those passions you put on the back burner, to speak your truth without apology, and to engage with the world with an intensity you might have suppressed for decades. So where does all this lead? When you reset your mind and you redefine your value and you master your freedom, you arrive at a completely new understanding of your life's final purpose, your true legacy.
The ultimate purpose of growing older isn't to quietly exit the stage. It's to step into one of life's most crucial and powerful roles, to become a living library of wisdom, a model of spiritual depth, and a guiding light for those who are still navigating the earlier, more confusing stages of life. And this is probably the most profound takeaway of all. We're conditioned to think of legacy in material terms, what we leave to people. But the true legacy, the one that actually echoes through generations, is what you leave in them. It's the wisdom, the courage, the love, the spiritual model you provided. That's the stuff that endures. So, as we wrap this up, the real question isn't whether you're getting older. I mean, that's a given. The real question is this: how will you wield the power of this final, potent chapter? Your story is far from over. What are you going to write next?